This show was first broadcast on Access Radio Taranaki 104.4 FM, thanks to New Zealand On Air.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for watching. Today in the studio with me, Rob Tucker. Thanks, Rob, for coming in.
My pleasure.
It's really special to have Rob in the studio with me today because I really admire you, Rob, and I really appreciate the work that you do. Rob is a photographer here in Taranaki. If you don't recognize his name, you'd probably recognize some of your photography. You've been doing it for a while, Rob.
This is my 53rd year.
53rd year of capturing amazing images. That's amazing. And now, you've captured so many images in your life, right? And when you capture an image, you're capturing a feeling, right?
Definitely. There's different pigeonholes for photographers, and not many people realise that I'm a photojournalist, and that is a photographer telling a story. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a wedding photographer, or I can't be, I haven't specialised in any one area. I specialise in telling stories,
right?
And especially people.
That's incredible. Now, I guess, so that means every story that you capture is different, eh? And it's the story of it's an authentic story.
It's a life's journey, and it makes you train yourself to hunt out what is life, and when you're taking a photograph, it's got to be reflective of that part of life. And it's so enjoyable once you get the hang of it.
Right.
Go. One of my last assignments was a year with the councils in the Manawatu, and the mayor of Palmerston North contacted me and said, would you do a book on what is the Manawatu? And I went down and saw him, and we had a discussion, and I said, it's going to be a fairly short book. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't think a lot happens down here, does it? And he wasn't that impressed. And a year later, I presented him with a 240-page picture book on what is the Manawatu. And starting from scratch, where I knew nothing about the area, you start to dig and you find what makes a province.
Right.
And if you think about that is incredibly complicated. Mm-hmm. How do you do that,
Wow. And for that one, what stands out is as the main experience from that? You started digging and you started finding treasures and connecting the dots. Is that how it rolled? Is that kind of how it works out?
You start with this one. I started off at the Eye Centre,
right,
looking at postcards.
Okay.
Because the local photographers take pictures which are the favourite shots that promote the province. So then that'll give you a lead as to what is some of the highlights. But then to produce a book, you've got to go a lot deeper than that. But you use that as a springboard, and you will go to meet somebody and they will give you a good story photo idea, and then you go to the next person and the whole thing grows.
Right. And
within 6 months of digging, you're meeting so many people, and they all want to help you because their province is better than anybody else's. And you get so deep sometimes that it becomes more personal than, interesting.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely journey, and my life's been like that the whole way through.
And with your photography, when you started off first, you went and you sought out some mentorship. Can we go way back to Boys High? Is it Boys High?
I went to Boys High.
Yeah.
And I went to the Careers Master in the sixth form, and it happened to be JJ Stewart, who at that stage or later on became the All Black coach.
Okay.
And JJ said to me, Tucker, what are you interested in other than girls and the time between bells? And I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, look, I've got this job here that's offering a studio in town. They're looking for a young photographer to train. Are you interested in photography? And I said, well, my father as an amateur movie maker. And I said, yeah, I am interested in photography. Yeah. Then in the fourth form, I built my own darkroom and started developing my own films. I said, yeah, I'd give that a go.
Awesome.
And I had the interview next week, and that was in 1966. And I started with Charters and Guthrie here in New Plymouth, and their job was mainly portraits during the week and up to 5 weddings on a Saturday.
Okay.
Meantime, my brother started work at the Taranaki Herald as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed a lot more interesting to me, chasing fire engines and whatever, than photographing weddings. And I managed to wheedle my way into becoming a journalist on the Taranaki Herald, and where they would pay me to take photos as well as write stories.
Right.
So my first 6 months of training was in journalism rather than photography. But it turned out that I was getting more photos published than I was writing stories. So I came a little expensive. So they decided to make me a photographer.
Awesome.
And that was in 1967. So
That's a like a beautiful example of recognizing strengths and kind of going with it, shifting to them, and just what happens if you have just kept on trying to plug away to be the perfect writer, or, the perfect writing journalist. That would have been terrible. Sounds like it would have been painful.
Yeah, I still can't write.
No,
I paint with pictures.
that's the one. Well, you get your stories out there. What would you say to somebody today that they're inspired by photography and in capturing stories and images? Where to start? What's stopping them? What's not stopping them?
I think what's stopping them is the advent of the cell phone, and everybody can take photographs easily, digital, download them themselves. Although I despair at the fact that most people seem to store all their photos on their cell phone and not download them.
Please back up your photos.
Yeah, back up your photos. And so everybody's a photographer. So to make money or make a living out of being a photographer today, you have to be incredibly hardworking and innovative. And you've got to start off with learning. A good way to start is by using a good digital phone, because you've always got the phone afterwards. If you're not, you lose interest in photography. Once you get the hang of the iPhone 11 and all its intricacies of photography,
right,
you can competently take good pictures. That's if your interest is still going. You then buy yourself a good photographic kit. Don't buy a good photographic kit straight off, because if you do lose interest, it becomes the family camera in the boot of the car.
That nobody knows how to use.
No one else. Yeah, and the batteries run flat, and then they can't find the card that goes inside it. And I think you need to also approach businesses and or a local magazine and say, I'm happy to work for nothing.
Right.
And get your images out there. Get them used. Don't try and think you're going to make a lot of money out of photography straight off.
Right.
You've got to get your credibility there as a photographer. And credibility can take up to 10 years.
Right. So,
and the trouble is, when I talk to young people about it, they want to be at my stage, 1 year into it.
Right.
No, it doesn't work like that.
You got to take time. You got to knock on doors.
Yeah, it's hard yards. The first 10 years is hard yards.
Yeah, it really is. Just in my experience of running businesses and things, and luckily I had some mentors early on, and because I'm very much like that. I like immediate results, so I know that I have to keep my helicopter up higher or longer, instead of just zooming in and going for the fight. And one of the things was, okay, we're going to knock on all these doors, and then we're going to come back next week, and we're going to knock on them again.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go and knock and knock and knock and just and visit, not being annoying, just saying hello and just getting known. And that was what started my first business, was just
making
hello.
Contacts, getting people used to you. But also, you can take great photos, but unless you get them used, you can store them under your bed or in the hard drive. but nobody sees them.
No.
So what's the point? You've got to have your photos out there that people can enjoy.
Right.
And you need to, Facebook's a good way of starting to get some recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a Facebook page for a while until I got hacked so many times I threw it away and said, this is rubbish. But I did a little tryout and I photographed Mount Taranaki in the middle of winter. And put up 2 photos of the mountain looking magnificent, and call it Mount Egmont, Mount Taranaki, Taranaki, Monga, whatever you like. But the mountain in its splendour is amazing. Absolutely. And I put the photos up on my Facebook page, and when it got to 250,000 hits. And it was people around the world saying, wow, what a magnificent mountain, or it was locals that remembered the mountain living overseas.
Right.
But it just proves that a good photograph, it's something that's familiar. I mean, 250,000 hits from one photograph or 2 photographs is amazing. And
that is amazing. That is, and that's what, these, different platforms now can do for us, even if we don't, have a base, we can just start by sharing, even on our Facebook page.
Sharing.
Just start sharing. And so, important note is just to take those photographs, but then not sit on them and actually get them out there. You're
only as good as your last photo.
Yeah.
I mean, people say to me, what's your favourite photo you've taken? And I say, well, I haven't yet. That's what keeps you going.
Yeah.
Years ago, I photographed my grandmother. She was sitting in front of the open fire at home after having a bath. And she was brushing her hair, and she was 87, and she'd had one haircut in her life. That was when she was 50. And she was brushing her hair in front of the light of the fire, flames from the fire.
Yeah.
And she was looking very pensive down, and her eyes were lit by the fire, and her hair was snow white, and it was lit by the fire. I did it as a black and white photograph. And I took it to work, and I printed it up as a big print, and I showed it to the most senior photographer at Taranaki newspapers.
Yeah.
A chap called Alf Brandon, who was an amazing photographer, art photographer especially. I said, Alf, what do you think of this? And he said, oh, it's all right. I said, what do you mean? It's the most amazing portrait I've ever taken. He said, yeah. He said, you're emotionally connected to it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, it's a relation of yours. And I said, oh, well, yeah, it is my grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, well, you're emotionally attached to it. He said, go and pin it on the wall at the end of your bed, and when you wake up in the morning, have a look at it, see if you can see any holes in it, what you should have done or what you could have done better.
Okay.
He said, if it's still there in 3 days, he said, you've taken the ultimate photo, go and get a new career. It was the best anybody had ever said to me.
That's awesome.
I'd been 3 years of photography, thought I knew it all.
Yeah.
Man, I still now know I don't know it all.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's such a fun field, and you're right, with photography these days, everybody has a phone, everybody's taking photos. Obviously, there's definitely room to, don't let that be, for the younger people listening right now, or even people anywhere in your lifetime, and you want to become a photographer or start taking photos. It's the ultimate opportunity now to grab your phone and start learning and actually taking photos, because we all have access to that technology, and I don't really think there's any worry about how many other people are doing it, because you're going to do it just the way you do it, and you're going to capture things that are just for you.
To become a photographer, you need to be able to see. That's what I say. You need to see life in front of you. And I had a classic example, and I won't mention names, but if she's listening, she'll know who it is. I had this local woman come to me, and she said, I've taken these photos. I've been in Nepal, and I've taken all these black and white photos. What do you think? Aren't they amazing? I said, for pictures from Nepal, they're up there. They're good. You're showing culture, raw culture of the locals, the tribal people, and their surroundings, the hardship they're going through. I said, yeah, they're good. I said, but what about the local culture? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, what about Taranaki culture? Have you photographed that? She said, oh, no, there's no culture here. Well, sorry, I would have done it the other way around. I would have proven that the culture here of what makes Taranaki is, sure, it's difficult, but if you can't see it, what makes Taranaki, you take the easy option and go to Nepal and shoot another culture. Dead easy. It's right in front of you.
Right.
Well, she didn't want to speak to me ever again. 2 years later, she asked me to open her exhibition on Taranaki culture at an art gallery.
Amazing.
And I told the same story and said, "You have made it."
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, and we don't have to go far, do we?
It's in our backyard.
Yeah. And, same thing for the message that I'm trying to get out there, trying to share loving kindness with the world. You don't need to go very far, do you?
No.
Yeah, I can just grab my camera and I can walk out onto the street right now and talk to people. And believe me, if you've got it inside you, you're going to find it on the street. Because, I did it not so long ago. I grabbed my camera, selfie stick, went out there, very uncomfortable, microphone in hand, Vox Pop style, just talking to people, and it was incredible. It was really good. Now, Rob, I find you to be an incredibly kind, gracious person, and you own that kindness. And I want to ask you, do you think about that, or have you? How has that come in your life? Just being the way you are and kind of going through life day by day, and just showing up as Rob Tucker. What's being Rob Tucker like for you?
Being positive.
Yeah.
I hate being surrounded by negative people or talking to people who are down about the world and whatever. I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been positive. I need a challenge. I like to meet that challenge. And my biggest asset I learnt all the way through is my smile.
Yeah.
I'm always smiling. I don't really notice that. But that's, that puts people at ease.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing I did when I was working for the Thai Tourism Authority in Thailand, photographing Thailand for the government, tourism.
Yeah.
And the first word I learnt in Thai was yim, and that means smile.
Oh, cool.
So all my pictures had smiling locals.
Right. That's incredible.
So that's right. Yeah. You smile, people smile back.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great tool to have in your toolkit. It's just put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And if you notice in my videos, I smile a lot. I'm a happy guy, but I have realized that before the camera hits roll, I put on a smile. If I'm having a bad day, I'm probably not going to make making a video that day. But anyways, I try to show up positive. Sharing with others different types of feelings, right? And you do that with every photograph you capture. Now, when we wrap this life up, right, and we're done, we say, okay, see you later. And we leave, let's say we leave a box behind. And in this box has one, let's call it one feeling that person, whoever opens it, is going to feel. And anybody can open this box, and they can open it several times. What's that feeling, Rob, that you would leave with that in that box, that they could open up and they would feel it? How would it feel?
Being positive.
Yeah.
You're only here on loan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether I should say this, but I've got cancer that's not curable. It's treatable at the moment. You probably wouldn't realise that. And I've had it for 18 months now. And I had to learn to live with it. And I've learned to live with it. And I'm staying positive. And people, when I tell them my story of I won't bore you with my medical history, I've just stayed positive and stayed smiling. Yeah. And getting the best out of life.
Yeah. And
don't surround yourself with negative people. Surround yourself with positive people. And just 4 weeks ago, I was on assignment in Fielding, just out of Fielding, and there was a big old barn on the property. Mm-hmm. And I walked inside having a nosy, and there's these old cars in there. And the guy said, "You want to buy one?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, we were thinking of selling a couple of these old cars." And I went along the line of cars, and I said, "I want that one." He said, "Yeah, how much you pay me?" I said, "Oh, he's put me on the spot now." I said, $4,000. He said, "Oh, I don't think that's enough." And he rang me the next day.
Right.
He said, 4.5. I said, "No, I'm not paying 4.5. I told you 4.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, you're a good bloke." He said, "I like you. You can have it for 4. And I bought myself a 1934 Austin truck that hadn't been going for 50 years.
Yeah.
It's got no rust. and I had to get a big trailer and tandem trailer. It is now in my garage at home. I know very little about panel beating and mechanics, but I'm teaching myself.
Incredible.
It's that challenge.
Oh, you got to challenge yourself, and that sounds like an incredible challenge right there.
Oh, it's good fun.
It's incredible. So every piece is going to have to be gone through, and I think there's going to be lots of sanding in there.
And her name's Beryl.
Beryl. Oh, Beryl. I'd love to see a photo of Beryl. I'm sure you've got some. There's going to be
I can share.
Yeah, there's going to be some.
Photos.
Yeah, there's going to be some before and afters. Now, earlier you said 27 books, is it?
28.
28, sorry to get that wrong.
Picture books, yeah.
Now, picture books are books. I mean, it's still, it's, putting them in paper and putting them together. What would you say for somebody out there that's, wanting to complete a piece of work, and they're the type of person that's very they want the results just yesterday. I'm talking about me.
Yeah. No, it doesn't happen like that.
It doesn't happen like that.
No, the average book takes a year. Yeah. That's the way I feel.
And are you that type of person does that naturally come to you, that you're okay with waiting a year to make that book happen?
Oh, as long as I've got other work in the meantime.
Okay, you're keeping yourself busy.
I mean, I think the taking of the photographs is a good third of the job, but 2/3 of it is the layout and design, and the printing of it's easy, but the editing it takes the time, and getting it right. Because once you publish a book, the first thing people will do is they'll look for mistakes in it, and they'll ring you up and say, "Hey, I like your book, but hey, on page 34, you've got the wrong word for key."
Right.
And or something, they'll just and then they hang up. And there's nothing about the book and what I've tried to achieve. It's they found a mistake.
Right.
So it's got to be right.
Right.
And then you get it published, and then you've got the marketing as well.
Right.
So that's been an incredible journey, learning about... it all started, actually, when the local wit here asked me to come up and would I be interested in doing... lecturing, part-time lecturing in photojournalism. And I said, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Anyway, that was from a lower level. And the higher level person I had to go and see, an American woman, she said to me, are you published? And I'd been 20-odd years in newspapers around the world and worked for all the major magazines, including Time, Life. I'd been Time photographer for New Zealand for 3 years. Yeah. I'd had the Buzzy Bee on the lawn at Government House with Prince Charles and Diana in Life magazine and People magazine. So I wasn't quite sure what she meant by being published. I thought, well, yeah, my photos have been published around the world. Front page of Time in London and all that. And she said, no, have you published a book? And I said, well, no, I've never published a book. I've never had time to publish a book. Oh, right. And blow me down, I got the Don't Come Monday letter saying, we don't need your services.
Oh, gosh.
I was so angry, I didn't say it to anybody. I decided, I rang a friend of mine who had asked me to illustrate a book on hunting with hounds in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. This is the first time it's ever been done. It took me 7 months touring New Zealand, hunting with hounds. And the book, we did 5,000 copies of a coffee table book.
Right.
Sold it for $96 a book, and we sold out within about 3 months.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, I'm published now. I haven't stopped since then, so I'm on my 29th at the moment.
Right. And you were saved from being a
lecturer.
A lecturer. That's a great story.
Well, I wasn't qualified.
No. Yeah, sometimes it pays not to be qualified, doesn't it? Oh,
well, that woman did me a favour in the long run.
Absolutely. And you got to see those. You got to see those situations as what they are, which is these little blessings packed up in a rejection. Oh
yeah, the rejection did me good. I mean, it just got me out there, and I mean, hunting with hounds is an incredibly difficult subject to cover. Mm-hmm. It was beautiful. I mean, I got onto some beautiful big sheep and cattle and beef stations throughout New Zealand. There's 35 hunt clubs At that stage, there was 35 hunt clubs in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got the Taranaki Hunt here, King Country Hunt, Pakuranga Hunt in Auckland. People don't realise that they race at Ellerslie, but they also chase the hare.
Oh, right. Interesting.
So it was incredible, and it's an association, and I had to have permission. They're fairly closed about what they do, and it had just been banned in England, hunting fox. And so I had to sign saying I wouldn't show blood.
Right.
And that was the only thing I had to do.
Okay.
That was easy.
And so that was the first one.
So?
That was the first one.
The first published book, yeah.
And how do you keep, like, with all of this work that you've done, you managed to raise a family, have a family, stay sane, and it's a huge amount of work. How do you, like, what's your trick for work-life balance, and has that taken a lot for you to learn along the way?
Well, it did. I remember, I did 3 America's Cups as part of Team New Zealand, and which meant quite a bit of time away in San Diego. But I took my family with me to San Diego, and the 3 children grew up going to school in San Diego and being with Team New Zealand. It was a huge experience for them, and that's why my children are around the world now, because it made them universal, not just from Taranaki. Well, I was living in Auckland at the time.
Yeah.
So it was a great education for them. So I included them, and I always remember I was asked by Peter Blake to photograph Lion New Zealand in the Sydney to Hobart race, and that Sydney to Hobart race starts on Boxing Day every year from Sydney, which meant I would have to fly over to Sydney on Christmas Day. I came home to my wife and said, "Oh, look, wow, it's amazing. They're going to give me a helicopter. I'm going to photograph this 5 days of racing or whatever it takes, and no expenses spared." And my wife just looked at me and she said, "What does Christmas mean to you with the kids?" So I've never done a Sydney to Hobart race.
No. Spare no expense. Oh, that's an incredible story. You have lots of stories, Rob. It's about building, a life of stories, isn't it? Going out there and not stopping and.
Oh, I could bore anybody for hours.
Oh, come on. Tell me about the Queen. No.
Have I got time to tell you the Queen story?
You've got a few minutes.
I used to do a lot of royalty photography in New Zealand. I did the royal tours for the government and for whoever. And I got phoned at home one day in Auckland, and it was the Queen and Duke were touring New Zealand. And this lady said, "Oh, is this Rob Tucker, the photographer?" with a very toffee voice. And I said, I thought it was somebody having me on. She said, "Would you do a private job for the Queen?" Right. And I said, oh yeah, really? And she said, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Well, how much do I get paid?" She said, "Oh, no, you don't get paid." And I thought, "Oh, maybe this is real." So I shut up. Anyway, she said, "Look, there'll be an invite for you to come to Government House in Auckland, and the Queen will tell you what she wants photographically herself." I said, "Wow, okay." And a couple of days later, a beautiful gilt-edged invite to Government House as a private meeting with the Queen. And I went along and I got invited in, and this man said, "Would you like it?" It was at 5 o'clock. The man said, "Would you like a drink?" And I said, "Oh, yes, thank you, I'll have a beer." And he said, "The Queen will be a few moments." The Queen came in and she was introduced herself to me. Right. And I curtsied. No, I bowed. Yeah. And she was offered a drink on a silver tray. It was already, she didn't ask for it. It just came over in a silver tray. And she had a sip of her drink, and she said, "Please enjoy your beer." And we were chatting away, and she told me all about the job, which was to do the Treaty of Waitangi and at Waitangi and at Paihia. And I had to go up there and spend 2 days and photograph all this stuff for the Queen, which was amazing because I could go anywhere I liked, and I had a special pass. And
in just a minute, Rob, before we get to the special pass, you're going to have to watch the rest of this. Listeners on radio, you're going to have to go on Facebook to watch the rest of this. Me and Rob are going to continue this conversation, and you can watch online. But for our radio listeners, check us out on the Facebook page to watch the full video.
This show was first broadcast on Access Radio Taranaki 104.4 FM, thanks to New Zealand On Air.
Anyway, I scared her at one stage where I said, "Are you looking forward to the walkers, Mum?" And she sort of stepped back and, "What are walkers?" And I said, "Oh, they're the Maori war canoes." Yeah. Oh, she thought I was swearing at her. Anyway, she said, "Thank you, Rob, for doing this for me, and please stay and finish your drink. I've got to go now and change for dinner." And I said, "Thank you, Mum." And she put her half-drunk drink down on the tray. And nobody was watching, and I looked at it and I thought, "Oh, it's clear. I wonder what it is." And I grabbed it and downed it when she was walking out. And I tell you what, it was straight gin. I don't think there was any tonic in it at all. I thought, "You bloody beauty girl, you have a proper drink."
Oh man, that's amazing. Rob, thank you so much for coming and spending this time with me today. It makes it really special for me to each week to be able to get to talk and share with people and just hear from people like yourself. So thanks for being awesome, and thanks for being here.
Hey, no worries, Keith.